In this video, I am going to share with you why commercial property. Why would you invest in commercial property? I'll give my thoughts and why I have been investing into commercial property. Hopefully, it will help you. So if you want to know, then stick around. All right. Why commercial property? Unlike residential property, although when we start investing into residential property, you always think that, okay, once I buy the residential property, we will keep this forever. We will pass it on to our next generation. But then along the line, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, we realize that residential property is, although it is giving me growth, it's not giving me enough income to sustain, to live. And residential property, all these expenses that is there is not going to help me in the future as well. In fact, if you pass it on some of the residential property to your next generation, the amount of maintenance and all those things that needs to be done, they might not be happy as well. That being said, commercial property, one of the key ways, most of the rich people or wealthy person in Australia, wealthy people in Australia, they pass it on this like an intergenerational wealth. They pass it on this commercial property, to their next generation. And this is possible because the commercial property is about income, and as long as you are getting income, you are happy to hold that property. Why would you sell something that is generating, that is producing cash? That is, you would only sell something which is not making money. Now the other reason people, of course, some people do sell commercial property, and that's how you buy it, right? They do sell it because sometimes they have 2, 3, 4 smaller properties and they combine these and making it one big property. Sometimes they sell the property because they really need that whole amount of whatever, I think medical expense or whatever reason. But if you want, it is possible to have, you can buy something and you can hold it for as long as 30, 40, 50, even 100 years. And of course, we will not live for 100 years. That means it is going to be passed on to the next generation. And this is the reason people buy commercial property with a long-term horizon. When I started investing in residential property, I also thought about this, that once I bought that property, I am not going to sell it. Fast forward almost 10 years, today I have been saying exactly opposite, that no, all my residential property would be sold. In fact, there would be zero residential properties. Now, as you know that I can't just sell all these things in one single year, then ATO will be my biggest end because I need to pay significant amount of tax, right? So what I'm doing is that I'm stacking it up, like every year I will be selling one each, and that way all these proceeds, all the money that it is coming after paying tax, then eventually I will do that into commercial. Now think about this for a moment. If I would have started my journey from day one just on the commercial property, assuming the knowledge and skills that I have, I would always start straight away from the commercial, because once I have commercial and if it is giving income, there is no reason that I have to sell that property. If I can add the value in that commercial which will increase the income, there is no, because tenant is always going to pay all these outgoings, hence there was no reason to sell. That means the strategy now I am actually implementing, that selling residential and moving to commercial, this, as you know, that to sell a property you need to pay the selling cost, then you need to pay all the capital gain tax. Those things can be saved as if it is an apple to apple, let's say the similar amount of commercial property I bought from day one. So why commercial? If you are particularly starting and if you are going to the journey, perhaps you can think that, okay, maybe I can buy 1 or 2 residential properties, but after that I will move towards commercial, because commercial property is where you will get that income. Commercial property is where you can pass it on to the next generation. And commercial property, of course, you also do not buy in your own name. You buy a different entity called a company or a family trust or an unit trust. So these are the different entities that you will be buying, which means it's easy to pass it on, and it's also much easier to hold it for long term. Whereas if it is a residential property, then sooner or later you realize that all these expenses that you have to pay, and more importantly, that government is giving us more and more kind of a tenant friendly lease. Even though there are states where if they're not paying on time, if the rent is not coming on time, particularly in residential property, you can't evict them straight away. There are if they say that I'll be homeless, so you just have to be careful that residential property is not for like the rent is going to keep on coming, because government is going to back them. The only thing good in residential property is about the growth. Now historically, if you see that it's been growing like 8 to 10% year on year, and every 10 years probably property price gone up. But also in that front, we need to be very careful that where you are buying the properties, what kind of properties you are buying, and what areas. For example, if you are buying in the heart of Sydney, where the property price, let's say, are $2.5 million, $3 million, chances are you are getting the rent only about $1,000 per week, or maybe $1,200 per week. A $3 million and $1,200 per week doesn't stack up. On top of that, all the expenses will be paid by the owner. So you need to look for somewhere where the rental yield is more, even though you need to be very careful that it is not for income, it is only for growth. The reason that you invest into commercial, not only because your generation, you also invest for your next generation. And if you believe in something, if you want to pass it on something to your next generation, which I want to do, particularly I want to make sure that my kids' education, or after that, if anything that I can do to them, I will do. And this is how doing in my case, which is the reason commercial property is so lucrative. Residential property, sometimes if it has been managed badly, kids will not be happy. In fact, say that, oh, this is a lot of things that needs to be done and it needs money, and we do not have money at that. And even after spending those, there is no guarantee that the rent is going to shoot up significantly. That's not going to happen in residential property. In commercial property, it is possible, and which is why you buy commercial property for intergenerational wealth. If you find this video helpful, and if you now believe that yes, commercial property is the way to go, please do me a favor, put in the comment section, say something about why do you believe that, or what's your circumstances, and like this video. It will also help me to reach out to more people like you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.